The coffee shop on Fifth Avenue was the kind of place where $20 lattes came with foam art that looked better than most paintings. I wasn't there for the coffee. I was there because my ex-wife texted me 3 days ago saying we needed to talk about our daughter Emma's college fund. Neutral ground, she'd said. Professional. I arrived 10 minutes early, driving my 1997 Honda Civic that had seen better decades. The engine made a sound like a dying whale when I turned it off, and the passenger door required a specific combination of pulling and kicking to open. I'd owned that car for 15 years. It had 240,000 miles on it and a paint job that could generously be described as sunburned patchwork. Sarah was already inside, sitting at a corner table. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, styled in that expensive way that's supposed to look effortless. She wore a white blouse that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. And next to her sat a man I'd never met. He stood when I approached. Tall, maybe 6'2", with the kind of tan that comes from yacht clubs rather than construction sites. His watch caught the light and I recognized it as a Patek Philippe. I knew because I'd once helped design the security system for their flagship store in Manhattan. I am Richard Chin. Most people call me Rich, which has been ironic for most of my life. The man extended his hand. His grip was firm, almost aggressive. Derek Morrison, he said. Sarah's told me a lot about you. I smiled and shook his hand. Nothing but good things, I hope. Sarah shifted in her seat. Rich, Derek and I have been seeing each other for about 4 months now. I wanted you two to meet since he'll be in Emma's life. Of course, I said, sitting down in the chair across from them. That's important. Derek leaned back, draping his arm across the back of Sarah's chair, in a gesture that was probably meant to look casual, but felt territorial. So you're in IT or something, right? Sarah mentioned you work with computers. Security systems, mostly, I replied. Digital infrastructure, some consulting work. He nodded in that way people do when they're not really listening. Interesting. I'm in private equity. Just closed a deal on a hotel chain acquisition. 16 properties across the East Coast. That sounds impressive, I said. The waiter came by and I ordered a regular coffee. Black. Derek ordered something with 4 modifiers that I couldn't keep track of. Sarah cleared her throat. So, about Emma's college fund. I wanted us to discuss the contributions going forward. She's applying to schools this year and some of them are quite expensive. Before I could respond, Derek cut in. Which schools is she looking at? Columbia's her first choice, I said. But she's also applied to NYU, Boston University, and a few others. Derek whistled low. Those are pricey. You know Columbia's running about 80 grand a year now, right? Total cost of attendance. I'm aware, I said quietly. He leaned forward, and there was something in his expression that made my stomach tighten. Look, I don't mean to overstep here, but Sarah and I have been talking. I want to help. Emma's a great kid and she deserves the best education possible. I'm prepared to contribute significantly to her college expenses. Sarah touched his arm. Derek, we discussed this. Rich and I need to work this out first. But he wasn't done. I just think, realistically speaking, this is expensive stuff. And I noticed you drove up in a pretty rough-looking car out there. Is that yours? The Honda? It is, I said. He laughed. Not judging, man. We all have different priorities. But college is coming fast, and if you're struggling with car payments, I can't imagine the tuition is going to be easy. I'm just offering to help. The coffee shop suddenly felt very small. Sarah looked mortified. Derek, please. What? I'm being practical. Look, Rich seems like a good guy, but let's be real here. That car looks like it should have been scrapped 10 years ago. I'm just saying, if he's having trouble maintaining a vehicle, maybe we need to have a realistic conversation about who can actually afford to send Emma to an Ivy League school. I took a sip of my coffee. It was too hot and burned my tongue. But I didn't react. Derek pulled out his phone. You know what, I'm curious. What kind of consulting do you do exactly? He started typing. Richard Chun, Security Systems, New York. His thumbs moved across the screen. Sarah put her face in her hands. I sat very still, watching him. The coffee shop sounds faded into background noise. The espresso machine hissing. Someone laughing at the counter. Jazz playing softly through speakers I'd probably installed the wiring for. Derek's face changed as he read. The smug smile faltered. His eyes widened. He scrolled. Stopped. Scrolled more. His tan seemed to fade by several shades. He looked up at me, then back at his phone, then at me again. I took another sip of my coffee and waited. Derek set his phone down slowly, face down on the table, like it had personally betrayed him. The color had drained from his cheeks. Sarah looked between us, confused and increasingly uncomfortable. So, Derek said, his voice different now, quieter, "You're that Richard Chun." I shrugged. "Depends which one you found." He picked up his phone again, turning the screen toward Sarah. His hand was shaking slightly. "Baby, did you know about this?" Sarah leaned in to look, then her eyes went wide. She turned to me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Shock, maybe, or something closer to anger. "Rich, why didn't you ever tell me?" "It never came up," I said simply. Derek was still staring at his screen like it might change if he looked long enough. "You sold your company for $420 million. $420 million. That was 6 years ago. $437 million, actually, I corrected. But who's counting?" Sarah's coffee cup clattered against the saucer. 6 years ago? We were still married 6 years ago. You sold a company for almost $500 million while we were married and you never told me? The coffee shop had gone quieter. Other patrons were starting to glance our way. Derek looked like he wanted the earth to swallow him whole. His expensive watch suddenly seemed like a child's toy. I kept my voice level. "You filed for divorce 7 months before the sale went through. You said I was never going to amount to anything because I worked too much and cared more about code than our marriage. You were probably right about the second part." Sarah's hands were trembling. "That's not fair. You let me think you were barely scraping by. You drive that horrible car. You live in that tiny apartment in Queens." "I do," I said, "because I like that car. And that apartment has everything I need." Derek had recovered some of his composure, but the smugness was gone entirely. He looked like a man who'd just realized he'd stepped on a landmine. "Mr. Chun, I apologize. I didn't mean to." I held up a hand. "You didn't mean to judge someone based on their appearance and assume their financial situation? That's exactly what you meant to do." Sarah was crying now, quiet tears running down her carefully made-up face. "All those times I called you to help with Emma's expenses. The field trips. The summer camps. You always paid, but I thought you were struggling. I felt sorry for you. I never asked for your pity," I said. "I asked if Emma was happy. That's all that ever mattered to me." Derek stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over his untouched fancy coffee. "I think I should give you two some space. Sarah, I'll wait outside." He left without looking at me again. Through the window, I could see him pacing on the sidewalk, running his hands through his hair. Sarah wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara. "Who are you?" she whispered. I took a long breath before answering. "I'm the same person I was when we met in that college library 23 years ago. The same guy who ate ramen for dinner 4 nights a week while building my first security software in our studio apartment. You just never bothered to look past what you wanted to see." Sarah shook her head, her voice rising. "Don't turn this on me. You deliberately hid this from everyone. From Emma. What kind of father does that? The kind who wants his daughter to love him for who he is, not what he has," I said quietly. "Emma doesn't know about the money because I don't want it to change how she sees the world. She works at that ice cream shop on weekends because she wants to earn her own spending money. She budgets. She appreciates things. Do you know how rare that is?" Sarah laughed bitterly. "So this is some kind of character-building exercise? You're playing poor while sitting on hundreds of millions?" "I'm not playing anything," I said. "I give away most of it. Scholarships for kids in underserved communities. Funding for schools that can't afford proper security systems. Last year I paid for complete digital infrastructure upgrades in 12 public schools in the Bronx. The year before, I funded a program that taught coding to 200 kids in foster care." Her mouth opened but no words came out. I leaned forward. "The money from the sale sits in accounts managed by people much smarter than me. I take a salary that lets me live comfortably and do work I find meaningful. Everything else goes to people who actually need it. That's who I am, Sarah. That's who I've always been." She stared at me like I was a stranger. And Emma's college? Is completely funded, I said. Has been since the day she was born. She could go to Columbia, Harvard, or anywhere else for undergraduate, graduate, and doctorate programs and still have money left over. She just doesn't know it yet. Sarah's face crumpled. She buried it in her hands, shoulders shaking. I softened my voice. I was going to tell her after graduation. Let her apply to schools based on what she actually wants, not what she thinks we can afford. Let her earn her acceptance on merit. Then I'll sit her down and explain that money will never be an obstacle to her education. Through the window, Derek was still pacing, occasionally glancing inside with the expression of a man watching his dignity dissolve in real time. If you're still watching this story and wondering what happens next, I'd really appreciate if you'd subscribe to the channel. Sometimes the biggest revelations aren't about the money at all, and this conversation is just getting started. Sarah finally looked up, mascara streaking her face. Does she know anything? About any of this? Nothing, I confirmed. And I'd like to keep it that way until the time is right. Sarah wiped her face with a napkin, leaving dark streaks across the white paper. So what now? You just expect me to keep lying to her? Not lying, I said. Protecting her childhood a little longer. There's a difference. She laughed without humor. You always did have an answer for everything. That's what drove me crazy. You were always so calm, so measured. Even when I screamed at you that you were wasting your life in that basement office, you just nodded and kept working. I was building something, I said. You saw it as neglect. Maybe you were right. Maybe I should have paid more attention to us instead of the code. But I can't change the past, Sarah. I can only try to do better with Emma. Outside, Derek had stopped pacing. He was leaning against a parking meter, staring at his phone again, probably reading more about me, probably calculating how badly he'd miscalculated. Sarah's voice dropped to almost a whisper. I told him you were a loser. When we first started dating, he asked about you and I said you were barely getting by. That you were brilliant once but never lived up to your potential. I know, I said. Her head snapped up. What? Emma told me, I explained. She overheard you on the phone with him a few months ago. She called me crying, asking if I was really a failure like you said. I spent 2 hours convincing her that success isn't measured in cars or clothes or corner offices. Sarah's face went pale. She told you that? She tells me everything, I said. We have dinner every Tuesday. Just the two of us. Has for years. She talks about school, her friends, her dreams. And yes, sometimes she talks about you and Derek. What does she say? Sarah asked, her voice small. That she likes him well enough but misses when it was just our family, I said honestly. That she feels like you're trying too hard to impress him. That she wishes you'd ask about her art projects instead of which designer bag she wants for her birthday. Sarah flinched like I'd slapped her. The door to the coffee shop opened and Derek walked back in. His composure mostly restored but his eyes guarded. He sat down carefully, like the chair might collapse under the weight of his embarrassment. I owe you an apology, he said, his voice formal. That was inappropriate and presumptuous of me. I nodded. It was. He winced. I'd like to start over if possible. For Emma's sake. Emma doesn't need you to pay for her college, I said flatly. She needs you to show up to her art shows. She needs you to remember that she's allergic to shellfish. She needs you to ask her about her volunteer work at the animal shelter instead of talking about your portfolio. Derek blinked. She volunteers at an animal shelter? Every Saturday for the past 2 years, I said. She's never mentioned it? Sarah and Derek exchanged a glance. The silence stretched between us like a canyon. Derek cleared his throat, looking genuinely uncomfortable for the first time since I'd met him. No, he admitted. She hasn't. We mostly talk about school and her college applications when I see her. That's because you ask about college applications, I said. If you asked about what matters to her, you'd get different answers. Sarah's voice was barely audible. What else don't I know? She wants to study art conservation, not business, I said. She's been researching programs in Florence and Paris. She's terrified to tell you because you keep talking about how she'd be perfect for law school or medicine. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Oh God. And she doesn't want a designer bag for her birthday, I continued. She wants you to take her to the Museum of Modern Art and spend the day actually looking at the paintings with her. Just the two of you. No phones, no Derek, no distractions. Derek shifted in his seat. I could take her if she wants her mother. I interrupted gently but firmly. Not everything needs to be a group activity. The weight of my words settled over the table. Sarah was crying again, but differently now. Quieter. More honest. I'm a terrible mother, she whispered. You're a mother who got distracted, I said. There's a difference. You can fix this, Sarah. You just have to actually see her. Derek looked down at his expensive watch, then back at me. For what it's worth, I understand now why you drive that car. It's not about the money at all, is it? Never was, I confirmed. That car has been with me through 3 business ventures, 2 failed startups, and 1 successful exit. It drove Emma home from the hospital the day she was born. Took her to her first day of kindergarten. It's got memories, not just mileage. He nodded slowly. I judged you completely wrong. Most people do, I said. That's why I don't correct them anymore. The people who matter figure it out eventually. Sarah reached across the table, her hand stopping just short of mine. Can we start over? Not us, I know that ship sailed. But as Emma's parents. As people who want the best for her. I looked at her hand, then at her face. The makeup was ruined. The carefully constructed image cracked wide open. For the first time in years, I saw the woman I'd married. Flawed, human, capable of change. We can try, I said. But it means showing up. Really showing up. Not just financially or physically, but emotionally. I can do that, she said. I want to do that. Derek stood up. I think I should go. This is family business and I've already overstepped enough for one day. I stood too, extending my hand. Take care of her. And remember what Emma needs. He shook my hand, his grip less aggressive this time. More respectful. I will. And Mr. Chun? Thank you for the lesson in humility. I needed it. 2 years later, I stood in a sun-drenched piazza in Florence, watching Emma give a presentation in flawless Italian about Renaissance fresco restoration techniques. She wore paint-stained jeans and a shirt with the logo of the Uffizi Gallery, where she'd been interning for the past 6 months. Sarah sat beside me, her phone tucked away in her purse. She'd kept her promise. The Tuesday dinners had become a regular thing for both of them. She'd even started taking an art history class so she could better understand Emma's passion. Derek hadn't lasted. The relationship ended about 8 months after our coffee shop conversation. Sarah said it was mutual, that they wanted different things. Emma later told me the real story. Derek couldn't handle not being the most successful person in the room, and once he knew about my background, every interaction felt like a competition he'd already lost. Emma finished her presentation to enthusiastic applause from her professors and fellow students. She caught my eye and grinned, giving a small wave. That smile was worth more than every dollar I'd ever earned. After the presentation, we walked through the narrow streets to a small trattoria Emma loved. She ordered in Italian, laughing with the owner like old friends. Sarah watched her with tears in her eyes. I'm so proud of her, Sarah whispered to me while Emma chatted animatedly about an upcoming restoration project. You should be, I said. You've been showing up. Emma turned to us, her face glowing with excitement. So I have news. The Louvre offered me a position in their conservation department starting next fall. It's exactly what I've been dreaming about. Sarah grabbed her hand. Emma, that's incredible. There's just one thing, Emma said, looking at me with that expression she'd had since she was 5 years old. The one that meant she was about to ask for something big. I need to tell you both something first. She took a breath. Dad, I know about the money. I've known for about a year. My heart stopped. How? I'm your daughter, she said with a gentle smile. I'm observant. Plus, I accidentally saw a scholarship foundation document with your name on it when I was helping you organize your office last Christmas. I Googled you like Derek did. Sarah looked stricken. Emma, why didn't you say anything? Because I understood why Dad didn't tell me, she said simply. He wanted me to make my own way, to value things that matter. And it worked. I got into these programs because of my work, not because of money. That's a gift more valuable than anything in a bank account. I couldn't speak. Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand. Emma raised her glass of wine. To parents who show up even when they mess up. And to the really important things in life that you can't put a price tag on. We clinked glasses as the Florentine sunset painted the sky gold. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. If it touched your heart or made you think differently about success and what really matters, I'd truly appreciate it if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below telling me what kind of story you'd like to see next. Maybe you have your own experience with being underestimated, or a moment when you realized what truly matters in life. Your suggestions help shape the stories we tell here. Until next time, remember, the most valuable things in life can't be found on Google. See you in the next one.